Namaste, Dandavat Pranam. By the instruction and grace of our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj, we are here reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're also honoring Sri Ram Navami, the appearance Dev, Lord Ramchandra. Canto 4, the creation of the fourth order, Chapter 3, Text 12. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Pasya prayantir abhavanya yoshito pyalan krita kanta shakavarutasa yasam vrajad bisiti kanta manditam nabho vimanai kalahamsa pandubi. O never-born, O blue-throated one, not only my relatives, but also other women dressed in nice clothes and decorated with ornaments are going there with their husbands and friends. Just see how their flocks of white airplanes have made the entire sky very beautiful. Purport. Here, Lord Śiva is addressed as Abhava, which means one who is never born, although generally he is known as Bhava, one who is born. Rudra, Lord Śiva, is actually born from between the eyes of Brahma, who is called Svayambhu, because he is not born of any human being or material creature, but is born directly from the lotus flower, which grows from the abdomen of Vishnu. When Lord Śiva is addressed here as Abhava, this may be taken to mean one who has never felt material miseries. Satī wanted to impress upon her husband that even those who were not related to her, father, were also going, to say nothing of herself, who is intimately related with him. Lord Śiva is addressed here as blue-throated. Lord Śiva drank an ocean of poison and kept it in his throat, not swallowing it or allowing it to go down into his stomach, and thus his throat became blue. Thus, then, he has been known as Nilakanta, or blue-throated. The reason that Lord Śiva drank an ocean of poison was for others' benefit. When the ocean was churned by the demigods and the demons, and churning at first produced poison, so, because the poisonous ocean might have affected others who were not so advanced, Lord Śiva drank all of the ocean water. In other words, he could drink such a great amount of poison for others' benefit. And now, since his wife was personally requesting him to go to her father's house, even if he did not wish to give that permission, he should do so out of his great kindness. Text 13. Katam sutaya pitrageha kautukam nishamya deha suravarya nengate anahutapyabi yanti suhridam vartor gurur deha kritascha ketanam. O best of the demigods, how can the body of a daughter remain undisturbed when she hears that some festive event is taking place in her father's house? Even though you may be considering that I have not been invited, there's no harm if one goes to the house of one's friend, husband, spiritual master, or father without invitation. 14. Tanme prasidedam amartya vanchitam kartum bhavan karuniko bhatarhati vayatmano urdheham adha prakshakshusha nirupita manu grihanayachita. O immortal Śiva, please be kind towards me and fulfill my desire. You have accepted me as half of your body. Therefore, please show kindness towards me and accept my request. 15. Rushir uvacha evam giritra priyaya bibasita Pratyabhyadhata prahasansripriya samsmarito dharma bidha kuvagisun yanhaha ko vishvashrajam samakshata. The great sage Maitreya said, Lord Śiva, the deliverer of the hill of Kailash, having been addressed here by his dear wife, replied smilingly, although at the same time he remembered the malicious, heart-piercing speeches delivered by Daksha before the guardians of the universal affairs. Purport. When Lord Śiva heard from his wife about Daksha, the psychological effect was that he immediately remembered the strong words spoken against him in the assembly of guardians of the universe. And remembering those words, he was sorry at heart. Although to please his wife, he smiled. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that a liberated person is always in mental equilibrium, in both the distress and the happiness of this material world. Therefore, the question may be now raised, why a liberated personality like Lord Śiva was so unhappy because of the words of Daksha? The answer is given by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Lord Śiva is Atma Rama, or situated in complete self-realization. But because he is the incarnation in change of the material mode of ignorance, tamagun, he is sometimes affected by the pleasure and pain of the material world. The difference between the pleasure and pain of this material world and that of the spiritual world is that in the spiritual world, the effect is qualitatively absolute. Therefore, one may feel sorry in the absolute world, but the manifestation of so-called pain is always full of bliss. For instance, once Lord Krishna, in his childhood, was chastised by his mother Yashoda, and Lord Krishna cried. But although he shed tears from his eyes, this is not to be considered a reaction of the mode of ignorance, for the incident was full of transcendental pleasure. When Krishna was playing in so many ways, sometimes it appeared that he caused distress to the gopis, but actually such dealings were full of transcendental bliss. That is the difference between the material and spiritual worlds. The spiritual world, where everything is pure, is pervertedly reflected in this material world. Since everything in the spiritual world is absolute, in the spiritual varieties of apparent pleasure and pain, there is no perception other than eternal bliss. Whereas in the material world, because everything is contaminated by the modes of material nature, there are feelings of pleasure and pain. Therefore, because Lord Śiva, although a fully self-realized person, was in charge of the material mode of ignorance, he felt sorrow. Text 16. Sri Bhagavanu Vacha Tayodi Tam Subhahanam Eva Sobane Anahutapya Biyanti Tayoditam Subhahanam Eva Sobhane Anahuta Api Yanti Bandushu Teyadyanut Padita Dosa Drishtayayo Valiya San Atmyama Dena Manyuna. The great Lord replied, my dear beautiful wife, you have said that one may go to a friend's house without being invited, and this is true, provided such a friend does not find fault with the guest because of bodily identification and thereby become angry towards him. Purport. Lord Śiva could foresee that as soon as Satī reached her father's house, her father Daksha, being too puffed up because of bodily identification, would be angry at her presence, and although she was innocent and faultless, he would be mercilessly angry towards her. Lord Śiva warned that since her father was too puffed up by his material possessions, he would be angry and this would be intolerable for her. Therefore, it was better that she not go. This fact was already experienced by Lord Śiva because although Lord Śiva was faultless, Daksha had cursed him in so many harsh words. Dandavat Pranamananda Krishna Prabhu.
Dandavat.
Text 17. Vidyatapo Vitavapur Vayaha Kulahi Satam Gunai. Vidyatapo Vitavapu Vayakulahi Satam Gunai Sadibir Asatametrai Smrto Hatayam Brittamana Durdrishaha Satabdana Pasyantihi Dhamma Bhuyasam. Although the 6 qualities, education, austerity, wealth, beauty, youth, and heritage, are for the highly elevated, one who is proud of possessing them becomes blind, and thus he loses his good sense and cannot appreciate the glories of great personalities. Purport. It may be argued that since Daksha was very learned, wealthy, and austere, and had descended from a very exalted heritage, how could he be unnecessarily angry towards another? The answer is that when the qualities of good education, good parentage, beauty, and sufficient wealth are misplaced in a person who is puffed up by all these possessions, they produce very bad results. Milk is a very nice food, but when milk is touched by an envious serpent, it becomes poisonous. Similarly, material assets such as education, wealth, beauty, and good parentage are undoubtedly nice, but when they decorate persons of a malicious nature, then they act adversely. Another example given by Chanakya Pandita is that a serpent that has a jewel on its head is still fearful because it's a serpent. A serpent by nature is envious of other living entities, even though they may be faultless. When a serpent bites another creature, it is not necessarily because the other creature is at fault. It is the habit of the serpent to bite innocent creatures. Similarly, although Daksha was qualified by many material assets, because he was proud of his possessions and because he was envious, all those qualities were polluted. It is therefore sometimes detrimental for a person advancing in spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness to possess such material assets. Kunti Devi, while offering prayers to Lord Krishna, addressed him as Akinchana Gochara, one who is easily approached by those who are bereft of all material acquisitions. Material exhaustion is an advantage for advancement in Krishna consciousness. Although, if one is conscious of his eternal beauty, if one is conscious of his eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can utilize one's material assets, such as great learning and beauty and exalted ancestry, for the service of the Lord. Then such assets become glorious. In other words, unless one is Krishna conscious, all his material possessions are zero. But this zero, when this zero is by the side of the Supreme One, it at once increases in value to 10. Unless situated by the side of the Supreme One, zero is always zero. One may add 100 zeros, but the value will still remain zero. Unless one's material assets are used in Krishna consciousness, they may play havoc and degrade the possessor. Text 18. Naitadrishanam swajana vyapekshaya grihan pratiyad anavastatit grihan pratiyad anavasitamanam yebhyagatan vakra dihabhichakshate aropita brubir amashankachibi. One should not go to anyone's house, even on the consideration of his being a relative or a friend, when the man is disturbed in his mind and looks upon the guest with raised eyebrows and angry eyes. Purport. However low a person may be, he is never unkind to his children, wife, and nearest kin. Even a tiger is kind to its cubs, for within the animal kingdom the cubs are treated very nicely. Since Satī was the daughter of Daksha, however cruel and contaminated he might be, naturally it was expected that he would receive her very nicely. But here it is indicated by the word anavashtita that such a person cannot be trusted. Tigers are very kind to their cubs, but it is also known that sometimes they eat them. Malicious persons should not be trusted because they are always unsteady. Thus, Satī was advised not to go to her father's house because to accept such a father as a relative and to go to his house without being properly invited was not suitable. And thus ends our reading for today. We'll continue from text 19 on Friday. Were there any comments or questions from the devotees? Jai Vishnupad, Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Srila Prabhupada, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, Srila Acharya Dev, Srila Shanta Maharaj ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Rupanuga Guru Varga ki Jai. All
Jai.
glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the worldwide devotees. Sama Bhaktiveda Vrinda ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Navadvip Dham ki Jai. Nishangapali Dham ki Jai. Mayapur Dham ki Jai.
Jai.
Jagannath Puri Dham ki Jai. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ju ki Jai. Gangamai Yamuna Mai ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham ki Jai. Giri Govardhan Gupta Govardhan Dham ki Jai. Sham Kund Radhakund ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Vrinda Devi ki Jai. Jai Harinam Sankirtan Yagya ki Jai. Scientific Sankirtan Yagya ki Jai. Jai Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Jai Princeton Bhaktivedanta Institute ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Institute ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat ki Jai. Jai Sri Ram Navami ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari. Jai Shrimati Uma Devi Dasi ki Jai. Jai Adinanda Krishna Prabhu ki Jai. Hare Krishna.
Sripad Krishna Keshav Prabhu ji ki jai.
Jai. Sri Rama Navami ki Jai.
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 Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Dandavat Prabhu ji.
Dandavat.